Welcome to worship. I'm Laurie Pierce Tingley. I'm the pastor at Mays Chapel United Methodist Church, and I'm grateful for you to be here on what is our online worship during this time of COVID. We are worshiping outside each Sunday morning at 9:30 under a beautiful oak tree, which provides lots of shade. So if you're in the Timonium area and want to join us, please do so at the corner of Mays Chapel and Jennifer Rhodes in Timonium, 9:30. So we will look forward to having you there. Our scripture today is from Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through 14. And this is right after Moses experienced the call that he had at the burning bush, one that he was not particularly enamored to have, but he and his brother Aaron are now in the land of Egypt. So hear these words. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. This text sounds, with all of its process and procedure, more like from Leviticus or Deuteronomy than it does from Exodus. Exodus has been action-packed so far with Pharaoh not knowing who Joseph was. You know, time has passed, right? And so now Moses should have been killed. One of the Hebrew children, Pharaoh wanted him dead. But he was saved through the water of the Nile. His mom put him in a basket. Pharaoh's daughter took pity, rescued him. Mom was able to raise him up until he was weaned, then was taken back to Pharaoh's house. Then we have this lull in time, this short little bit where we then read that Moses, having kind of straddled two worlds, not quite fitting in either place, had a choice to make. Who was he going to be? And I don't know whether he articulated that choice in himself, and yet he chose when he witnessed one of the Egyptians striking one of the Israelites, he killed him. And so on that day, Moses ran. He was a runaway. He was a fugitive. And he ran to Midian, and he settled a dispute there right away, because there were some shepherds, some herders, who were giving the women a hard time at the well. They were shooing them away. They were chasing them out. And Moses stuck up for them. You know, Moses had this sense, this ingrained nature to stick up for the underdog. And so one of the women who Moses stuck up for, Jethro's daughter. And so he married her. And now he was a shepherd until the burning bush. He was keeping Jethro's flock, and the burning bush called him to another task. God had another plan. It was as if Moses had been from the get-go targeted, labeled, called. And even though he thwarted that plan, perhaps, God found him. And now his task was to go back to Pharaoh. And Moses didn't want to do that. He said, "Who am I? I can't speak. I'm not..." A fugitive you have been, but you can't hide out forever. Those are my words, not God's words. But God said, "Take your brother Aaron." And so they find himself. So when the scripture text starts, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, we know that something big is about to happen. Something big. And yet, then it's like the brakes stop. The brakes are put on, because then this whole next part of the text that God speaks is about how the people are to mark this momentous occasion. Very specifically, right? Time is now going to be renewed. Look, this month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It's like this is now, set the calendars, set the clocks, reset everything. This is the first month. And what I want you to do, the whole congregation, can you imagine the administrative task that Moses had, coming back into the land and saying, okay, so this is what's going to happen. You're going to need to, everybody in the land of Israel is going to need to select a lamb or a goat, but without blemish. And I want you to choose that on the 10th day, but then keep it until the 14th day. And in the evening, we'll all slaughter those lambs or goats at the same time, and we'll all have this meal that is going to be prepared. And by the way, this meal is very specific, right? Everything is going to restart right then. And everything does. In this detail, we see that God is resetting for the people a sense of who they are. Even time will be reset. And it's now that it's like, pay attention, because this is the beginning. Once you were slaves, once you were no people, now you are. Remember, these folks have always been God's people, and yet they have forgotten who they are. You know, they have been slaves for 400 years. They have forgotten the stories. And they've eked out an existence in Egypt as slaves. And so now God is saying, now is the time for liberation. Now is the time. And before that happens, this is what's going to happen. You're going to eat this meal. And so when we're told that the lamb needed to be eaten roasted, you're not even going to bother to boil the water, because then everything else would have to happen. So you're going to eat it with the head and the legs and the innards. You're not going to prepare this lamb like anything else. You're going to roast the whole thing. right? Quick. It's the quickest way to do it. And you're going to have a side salad of bitter herbs. Whatever's, the herbs that are growing. You're not going to dress them up right? You're going to eat this with unleavened bread. We're not even going to wait for the bread to rise. And the other piece about that is when you have to make bread, yeast is something. Now, how many of you during this COVID time have made bread? You've perfected that sourdough recipe, right? You've figured out how to do it. Yeast is actually a seed that's kind of then used over and over and over again. There's a piece or a specificity about how yeast is that brings the old into the new, right? Especially when you have that like sourdough starter and those kinds of things. So it's fascinating that right now, this is yet another way to acknowledge that there's going to be nothing brought forward. You're not even going to make anything with this bread that was left over. It's going to be fresh and quick. I love this. And you're supposed to eat this meal with your loins girded and your staff in your hand and your shoes on your feet. You are to be ready for the newness that is about to happen. This is it. In case you miss it, this is it. And by the way, I need to know that on this night, you're going to need to put blood on the doorpost and the lintel so that I know, the angel of death knows that to pass over your house. Because this is it. Make no mistake. In this way, this community was reshaped and reformed. In this way, this community knew that all of the ways of the old are going to be refreshed and renewed, reset in a way. And yet this would be the reframing and the retelling that they would carry with them, carry forward. This would be the marker of our personhood. Who we are and to whom we belong would be set. And every year we tell the story. Now we know that every year that story is told and retold and retold, and there's more that's been added to the table over time and the way you do things and the ritual, But we're like that as humans, aren't we? Do you have any rituals that you do? We all do, right? You have to eat things in a certain way. You have to, don't get my husband started on my ritual way of loading the dishwasher. I have a specific way to do it. It drives me nuts. I am the queen of dishwasher loading, but you don't mix up the utensils, right? You place them in the baskets, in the spaces, forks in one area, spoons in one area, knives in one area, right? Come on. And even the knives, not just the bread and butter knives and, the everyday knives, but then the sharp, the steak knives, you don't mix them together. No. I know it drives them crazy. And I have been known a time or two to reload the dishwasher when it's not done properly. But we create ritual out of a lot of things, right? It's a grounding. It's a sense of who we are, and it gives us a sense of perspective on life and the world, even if it's our dishwashers. So it's not surprising that God, knowing who we are, provides this, in the midst of all this drama and all this action that happens in Exodus, and what will happen that very night, that the drama picks up very quickly after this meal is done. But it's this tone this sense, this marker. Remember this. Remember what I've done for you, God is saying, you know? Remember that this will be the night that everything changes. I love also that the community is reshaped in relation to one another. So even the way a lamb is divided up, right? If a household is too small, let it join together with another household so that the lamb, nothing will be left over. It's divided up according to how many people are there. Nothing will go to waste. And also, no one is left out. Everyone has access to this meal. Everyone. No, it's a shared and communal thing. We take care of one another, and if you don't have enough, come join me, and if I don't have enough, I'll join you. And yeah. So time restarts. You don't take anything unnecessary from beforehand into the future. And this community that you're with, you're responsible for one another. So God is clearly choosing. He says, I am pronouncing judgment on all the gods, little g, gods of Egypt, all the gods that are prevailing here. And so if, by the way, you Israelite folks, if you've picked up any bad habits, leave them home, leave them behind, because right now everything is being reset. Who you are, who you belong to, and how you interact one with another. How does that inform our rituals in the church? On the night in which Jesus gave himself up for us, those words for us are words we speak every Holy Week. And a lot of times, those are the words that we use for Holy Communion. Because Jesus on that night was celebrating the Passover, was looking back to who he belonged to, was celebrating in the Jewish community, which he was part of. And yet then on that night, everything changed. But he also ate and celebrated with many folks through his life. And those are the things that Jesus wants us to remember as well. Not just that specific night, but who Jesus is. Ate with sinners, ate with lepers, ate with tax collectors, ate with people that, ate with the crowds who knows who was mixed in, provided for folks, provided a meal when the disciples saw him after he had risen on the beach. Who is this man? Oh, it was in the feeding of the fish that he broiled that Jesus was shown not to be a ghost, but really resurrected. On the road to Emmaus, it was Jesus breaking the bread and sharing the cup, sharing at table with the people at Emmaus after. Were not our hearts burning within us? It was then that they recognized who he was. So we remember the times that Jesus shared love, shared peace, shared relationship, shared wholeness and forgiveness and community and love, and shared who God is. What are we going to bring with us into the future? Right now, it feels as though we are just longing for the past, right? As soon as we can get back to life as we knew it. But maybe right now, there's a good opportunity for us to claim who we are and to whom we belong, and let go of all the stuff that we were just holding on to, all the rituals. I may want to let go of the way I pack my dishwasher. We've always done it this way before. It seems to be a chant we have at the church. Not our church in particular, although we do. There are ways that we do it this way. We do it this way. As a family of faith, as a people gathered, we just get used to doing things certain ways. But what can we let go of? And what can we reclaim as our mission? Are we making sure that everybody has access to the table? Are we sure that everybody has a portion of the feast? Are we sure that we're not just reciting these words to be doing it, but they really point to something bigger, a restructuring of who we are and to whom we belong, reorienting ourselves to what that means? Clearly, in this text and in Jesus' life, we see that we need to always be reorienting ourselves away from the powers of slavery and sin and death to liberation and wholeness and life. Are there things that we need to reorient ourselves around and toward? A lot to ponder in our time together. But it's really a pondering of, are we being faithful? Not being held back by ritual that we've created, but what's been handed down to us that we need to reclaim. And just stick to that. Love. Love God. Love our neighbors. Full stop. Excluding no one. That's our word for today. Thank you for joining me today for a little bit of God talk, for pondering, for figuring out who we are and to whom we belong. We know it. We might just let other things get in the way. So on this day, let's not let anything get in the way. Remember, you are a beloved child of God, and so is everyone else. So tell someone. All right.